and would love to listen to. Amazing. Awesome. Um, Thank you very much, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of this our live webinar where we're having a conversations with experts, industry experts. And it's always fun to have one of these sessions because there's always something new or something exciting, to learn from our guests. Our guest today is going to spend some time introducing himself, and then we're going to dive into kind of like some conversational Q&A to, better understand how we can, make the best of opportunities abroad. And we'll talk about, all the different routes. We'll talk about, concerns and best ways to approach this thing. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest, Prashant, and please take it away.
Hi, Paul. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. This is for the first time. I'm doing it, my webinar in the continent of Africa. So this is for the first time for me. But obviously, I've done this kind of a seminar and webinars for a long time. So let me give you my formal introduction. My name is Prashant Ajmera. I'm Indian origin, but a Canadian citizen based in Montreal, Canada. But right now, I am in the city of Ahmedabad in India. By profession, I'm an immigration lawyer, or you can say lawyer who is specialized into immigration law. I've been doing this one since last 32 years. 32 years back, like you guys, I was attending an in-person interview or a meeting with an immigration lawyer. I become his client, and then subsequently in the same meeting, we become an associates. And that's how my journey started as an immigration lawyer with him. So I can understand that what you are going through and what kind of questions you have it, and I'll be more than happy to answer that. Again, I become a member of the International Bar Associations, where I got a connection with the immigration lawyers from different countries, from USA, Canada, obviously, UK, European countries, Australia, New Zealand, um, Caribbean countries, and so on and so forth. So that gives me a very broad perspective as a lawyer to understand the different immigration law of the different countries. And that's basically helped me to advise my clients to for their higher educations or for the immigrations or for the job prospects or the residency or citizenship by investment of a multiple jurisdictions. And with my experience during the COVID time, you can see the two books behind me. That was written by me. One is The Millionaires on the Move, which talks about the residency and citizenship immigration program of the about 20 countries, including USA, Canada, European countries, and Caribbean islands. And the another book is about how to plan for your child's foreign education. That was right in the middle of the COVID in 2020. I launched that book. And the reason I came to writing second book was the product of the first book, that parents were asking me question about that. How do we plan? Or every client coming in my office always asking, we are very wealthy, we are well to do, we do not want to live, we are doing all these things for our children, give us a guide. And that I thought that I should write a book. So that's my second book. So that's my brief introduction. Paul, shoot the first question, please.
Awesome. Thanks, Prashant. I love the background, right? I think 32 years is a lot of time to be doing, to be doing this work. And I think that in and of itself kind of like tells us how, your wealth of knowledge that we're going to be, enjoying today is going to benefit us, as, people who are trying to relocate abroad or who are trying to figure out the next step. And I should definitely get one of your books so that I can, I can familiarize myself with how to become a millionaire on the move. Awesome.
Uh,
So we have a lineup of questions here. So the way we're going to do this is if you have any questions as we continue, you can either drop those questions, there's a chat question button that you can use to ask those questions, or you can drop them in the chat so that as we get towards the end of the webinar, we're going to reserve time to talk, to take direct questions, right? And we're just gonna, hit through some questions, have some conversations, and go from there. So obviously, one of the key conversations that we want to have today is how, the opportunities that are available for international students, right? Because sometimes when international students are planning to go abroad, they're strategic about it, right? They want to go to a place where, they have the opportunity to be able to do more than school if they so desire, they want to after the education. Can you touch on how international students can essentially plan their study abroad education to help prepare them for, other opportunities like, job abroad, permanent residency,
Right.
etc.
See, Paul, in now today's in digital world, 32 years back, we didn't have a digitals. The only facility technology when I started my practice was only fax machine. That was the height of the technology. That you write it by hand, and I send a fax to Canada, and my lawyer is sending me a fax, and this one.
Hmm.
But now in this time, we have a wealth of informations available online, and this is what most of the lawyers are now using it. But the basic question is the very right question you ask, and you ask all the three right points: study abroad, job opportunity, and immigration, right? And in that respect, the most of the students, whether it's in Africa or in Europe, I mean, in Middle East or in India, Pakistan, and all these countries, I've done seminars. Over the period of time, the people started presuming few things that if I go study abroad, my life is set. That's not the case. You know that you're doing it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
The second aspect is that it's been overpopulated, I mean, overrated, rather, I would say, by the immigration agents and student visa consultant, that if you land in particular country, whether it's America, Canada, the job is waiting for you, right? And the third one is oh, as soon as you pass this diploma or a degree, you got your immigration.
Mm.
And this message is going from these agents in such a high frequency because they want to sell an admission to an institute so they can make their commission. I'll be very honest about it. And that's why they are selling product. They are not advising you. They are not doing a career counseling. They say, yeah, we are a counselor, but they are not. They are selling an admission to a particular university or a college. So So you have to be careful, and you have to do your own homework or take an advice from a right source or a right people. First, you have to understand that when you're going for a study, in every country, particularly what you are going to study is that obviously it will show you the government Department of Labor website. Generally, it's in the USA, in Canada, are there. It will show you the job prospects of that particular job in that country, which will give you an idea that okay, if I'm going to study computer science or if I'm going to study a political science, what kind of job I can look into that country, what are the prospects, what are the salaries are there, what is the outlook by the local government. That information is there on the government website officially. You don't need to ask anybody. You just have to look at it. So that's the first aspect of is that if this is what I'm going to study, then what are the job prospects? Then the second aspect is the after the job prospect, what is the immigrations? Obviously, you need to talk to an immigration lawyer from that country who can tell you that whether it's going to happen immigration or not. When you get all these positive three answers, then you think about going abroad and that, okay, this is my plan, this is how it is going to work. And also, Paul, when client comes in my office, I give them six or seven options straight away when they're a high school graduates. Look, you can go to study in any countries after your high school diploma for a 4 years bachelor's, or you can do a 4 years bachelor's in your home country and do a master's. You can do a master's, bachelor's and master's in your home country, do a 2, 3 years of an experience, and then you do your permanent immigration. In certain country, it is possible, like Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Or if you are an aged person, do you want to make an investment and then obtain an immigration? So these answers are there, it's ready-made. These options are available. But what is in people's mind is, Paul, that I need to leave my country ASAP. This place sucks. I go to Canada, I go to USA, I finish my bachelor's degree, and I got my job and I got my immigration, which is not going to happen for a very simple reason, Paul, that the immigration rules in these countries are very well defined, very well defined. And we, as immigration lawyers, work on that basis that if you come to Canada or Australia or New Zealand, these three countries, I call it an open immigration policy, because in these three countries, you do not need a company to sponsor you if you have a right education, right English, right work experience related to your educations. You can get a direct immigrations for a couple of $1,000s. Why you want to spend hundreds and hundred thousands of dollars for a higher studies? So these three answers, you should have it clearly in front of you. I would say in Nigeria, yesterday I looked at it, I was just preparing myself for this event. You have a wonderful universities in Africa. If you have a bachelor's or a master's degree there, if you have a relevant experience, I can tell you, if you are under the age of 35, you can obtain a direct immigration to Canada, Australia, or New Zealand if your occupation is in demand in that. And it will cost you less than $3,000. But if you say that I want to take a degree from America or Canada or in Australia, then go for it. It's going to cost you $200,000, $300,000.
That's amazing, Prashant. I think that's a good point you've made, and I kind of like want to touch base on that. So I like the three key points you've made here in terms of like, being sure to look at the career outlook in the country you intend to go to.
Absolutely.
The government always provide this information, right? And then look at how though your career, can provide you with an immigration pathway. But I think the final point you've made around the idea that, people have options. You don't necessarily need to leave your country right away, right? Because life suck. You want to go abroad, and that's where you want to, have a great experience. I'll give you a personal example. My youngest sister, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, she got admitted to some universities in the US, and also I think in US and also in Canada, um, got scholarship. These did amazingly well, but unfortunately, she was not granted a visa, right?
Right.
And typically, right, some people would say, let's keep trying, let's keep trying, let's keep trying. Then they keep wasting time. Guess what? We're like, you know what? We're not gonna let her keep trying, right? We're going to enroll her in a private university. So she enrolled in a private university, and she's gonna be graduating next year with her undergrad, right? So the idea was, you know what? She can go to a local private university, and then maybe after she's done with her undergrad, she can go do a master's abroad, or if she wants to do a master's in Nigeria, and then maybe someday she can go do a PhD abroad, right? But to your point, right,
Yeah.
there's always options. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The option is that. And number two, then now another point you said that she got rejected for the visa. So again, let me make your position clear about it that people, when their visitor visas, student visas, work permit visas are rejected, they think that my life has come to an end. Okay?
Yeah.
Let me give
Yeah.
you a distinction. Let me give you a distinction that the work permit, student visas, and a visitor visa, we live
Mhm.
in a developed country. So by our backgrounds of our people that the chances we are not that economically strong, the law presumes in all these countries that you're going to stay in our country on a permanent basis.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
a law's presumption. It's provided in the law. It's
Mhm.
not like the
You're
officer
you're
is
guilty. You're guilty until proven innocent.
innocent. Absolutely. So when you are in these three categories, we call it in our legal term non-immigrant visa. So you are going to be in that country for a limited period of time, either for a work or for a
Mhm.
tourism or for a study. And in that case, to prove and make up your case is very, very hard. And that's why you are getting wet. But if you say, for example, in your sister's or your relative's case, if she finishes bachelor's degree and a master's degree, I'm sure that she's good in English as well, obtain a
Mhm.
relevant experience related to her education, as if she doesn't want to leave Nigeria or Africa or wherever she is,
Mhm. Mhm.
and get an experience of 2 to 3 years related to her education, and she's good in English, Then she can apply for permanent immigration to Canada or in Australia or in New Zealand. And that when you apply for a permanent immigration, the discretionary power of the officer is gone. He has to see that whether you have a right education, you have a IELTS exam taken. So do you have uh, the test results? How many years of an experience do you have it? What is your age, which you prove by your birth certificates? All these things
Mm-hmm.
together, they have a point system. And based on that point systems, if you make the point, there is a 99.9% chances that your visa would be approved. The 1% possibility is not going to be approved, probably if you have a criminal record or if you have a medical
Mm-hmm.
problems. In my 32
Yeah.
years of an experience, I've seen only one client who had a tuberculosis, so his visa was not rejected but was delayed by 1 year.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
this is a more secure pathways to look at it, a planning. I want to come to a Nigeria, I can start a walk, I can take a plane, I can take a charter flight, I can drive down and
Mm.
come to Nigeria, Lagos, right? But then I have
Yeah.
to make a plan that how I'm going to go, how I'm going to do it, and what I want to achieve. Similarly,
Yeah.
in for the higher studies, working abroad, settling abroad, yes, people are moving. We are in this 21st century where the migrations, this is, we call it a voluntary migration, is on height in the world. And when you have this
Yeah.
kind of a migration, the planning is necessary. See, 30 years back when I migrated to Canada, I had to show to the people that where the Canada is in the map. Now, when people come in my office, they have already visited Canada, and then they come to me that Mr. Ajmera, can you help us? We like the Canada now. We want to be immigrants.
Mhm.
Similarly, in your continent, is also similar kinds of things that happens. So now more and more people are coming, and then people will say that Trump has come and the U.S. immigration has become difficult. I can tell you on a piece of paper in writing, in last 32 years, the green card process of USA hasn't changed. It's the same.
Mhm.
But people are trying to take, because in India, in African countries, 30 years back, my parents were not that wealthy. Now the parents
Mhm.
are wealthy. So they want their children to go after the grade 12, not after the bachelor's or
Yeah.
a master's.
Yeah.
Because they
Yeah.
can say it becomes a social status for them. It has become, they want to say to the friends and peers, my son is studying in Canada or in Australia or in UK or USA, without realizing that how long it's going to take to get a green card, to find a companies,
Mhm.
and have they done homework? No. Once they arrive in that country, within a 6 months to 1 year time, they realize that, uh-oh, they made a mistake.
It's
They didn't do
hard.
their homework.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. I like how you mentioned. I guess the Nigeria and India, we have so much in common, right?
Right.
Is I remember when I was gonna come to the US for higher education, right? To your point, it's a social status, right? It's like, hey, my child is going to school in America, my child is living in Australia, And also in some African countries or developing countries is I think the bias is when you have a degree from a foreign institution, it means you know better. So I guess all of this bias built into where people don't necessarily look at things,
Right.
holistically in terms of making decisions. But I like the point that you made around people knowing their options, because it's not just about, like we've seen, I'm here, right? So oftentimes I have people call me and say, I did not get the H1B. What do I do? I did not get right now my OPT is expiring. What are my options? Right now my CPT is expiring. Where do I go from here? Yeah, you do have options, right? But your point is it would have been a lot better if people can actually plan, before they come, right? You get the necessary education, you get the necessary work experience, with, some savings. When you have some savings, you can essentially, put
Yeah,
yourself to
absolutely.
at a better advantage. So sweet. So when we're talking about putting, oneself in a better position, right? Before relocating abroad or after relocating abroad, what are some of those options? You've hinted at, the idea that when parents come in with their kids, you give them options and help them understand what opportunities they have, right? What are some of those opportunities,
So
that
yeah,
people can take advantage of?
so basically we are looking at because I know in Nigeria people speak English just like in India. That's their first language
Yeah.
almost, rather even better than the Indian.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to look at it the six English speaking countries: USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, and Ireland. These six countries. Now, out of these six countries, I have been to, except Ireland, I've been to every country. And I call it particularly Canada, Australia, and New Zealand has an open immigration policy. Because in all these countries, they have realized it that we need continuously 1 to 1.5% of the new immigrants coming in our country on a permanent immigration basis. If we do not continue to take these people from abroad, we are not going to survive as an economy because the birth rate is very low. And this is not one reading, but it's the research of the several institutes, because you have to go in a little bit in history that from the Second World War in 1945 to up to 1965, these countries were completely closed for immigration. In those days, like there was one question was asked to a Canadian prime ministers that how many immigrants would you take? And the answer was one is too many. Okay. But when we came to the 1965 and 70, they started realizing, we call it the baby boomers. The people who came
Mm,
from the war, they got married, they have children, they were wealthy, they bought the house, they built up their assets and everything. But the birth rate of the children were very, very low. And that's
mm,
where the government realized that we need to open our doors to bring the immigrants. And that's why, if you read the immigration history of these six countries, that's the reason that they want to bring certain type of people on a permanent immigration basis. And that hasn't changed in my 32 years of an experience. That hasn't changed that, okay, Australia is closing their door forever, or New Zealand or Canada is closing their forever. The regulation changes from one way to the other way. The selection criteria might change from one way to the other way. But the basic fundamental of bringing the 1% or a 1.5% of the population to Canada or Australia or New Zealand hasn't changed. Even in USA in 1988, when the green card quota was issued, it divided into two parts. One part is the family migration, that the brothers and sisters can bring their brothers and sisters. And the second
mhm,
part was our green card by employment, which is an EB1,
mhm.
EB2, EB3, EB4, and
To
EB5
to be
visa.
three. Yes.
And that number hasn't changed. Probably you have applied for your green card on EB2 or EB3. So that number hasn't changed. That process hasn't changed. So without adopting to that process and going under that one, what people are taking is a longer route, going to study, then OPT, then H1, H1 to green card to citizenship.
Okay. Thanks, Prashant. I think I like the point that you've made that people are taking the longer route, right? Which is kind of like one of those things that we need to, pay attention to. The other day I was talking to an individual, they did not even know about the OPT and CPT. You know, they had no idea what
Right.
options they had, right? So I think it's very important to your point that people are educated about their options, right? So for me, I wish I had known, 10 years ago, 11 years ago that, I did not have to, I studied when I was in Nigeria, I studied for a diploma, an advanced diploma in web design and programming. And then later on, I realized that I no longer want to become an engineer. But the next step was I was like, let me go to America, and explore my options there. So, if I had known that, there are options, I probably would have made, other decisions then, right? So I think,
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that is a very hard way in terms of the time, money, and energy.
Hmm. I
You
agree.
might get delayed by 1 year or something, but take your time, take your advice, and be ready to pay for a right consultations or give you. But if you go to a regular agent and consultant, they will sell you an admission to the one of the college. That's it. That's their job.
Sweet. Our job at Pay for Me right now is, and I like to tell the Pay for Me story, right? Is Pay for Me was born out of my own personal frustration, right? I came to the US, I was having challenges with getting my tuition and school fees paid. And then I started working as an international student advisor, and I realized that a lot of international students were also having the same problem. I was like, you know what? Why not start a company to help solve problems for international students? So I'm glad we're having this conversation, right? So, I'm just curious, is one of the key areas that students don't know it's available to them is or parents, students or parents, etc. don't know it's available to them is residency through investments programs. And can you touch on that a little bit? What
Right.
that could entail
So,
and
so
how that,
yeah.
yeah.
See, again, this program were there in Canada and in America for many, many years. But now it has become more popular in every continent, in Africa, Middle East, Asia, South Asia, Latin America. Because when somebody or some of you will happen to you, or you are already there in this audience, that when you reach the age of, say, 35 and 40, you are trying to become a successful, make your money in your own country, but still you wanted to immigrate to this Western world for a better quality of life, for now better future of your children. So that's where the residency and citizenship by investment come into the picture. And there are three types of group of countries I put it. Again, the English speaking country, the European countries, and the Caribbean countries. So USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and UK has a residency and citizenship by investment. Whereas in USA, it is known as an EB-5 visa. In Canada, it is known as a PNP entrepreneur program or a startup program. In UK, again, it is known as an entrepreneur or PNP program. So generally, what this means is that if you are a successful businessman in your home country, with 2 3 years of an experience and you have a necessary assets, probably $300,000 and so on and so forth. And say, for example, you have a plan to establish some business in Canada or in Australia or in New Zealand, then you can apply to these countries for a residency and citizenship. And why the parents are taking that route for two reasons: that they had a wish when they were young that they wanted to settle abroad, they could not do it. Now they are becoming successful in their home country or wherever they are now, but now they have an asset, money, business, but still for better quality of life, they want to move. And they want their children to study in those countries where they could not study. That's number two. And number three,
Hmm.
that if you become a permanent resident to these Western countries, your tuition fees can be reduced by 80 to 90%.
That's a huge one. Yeah. International student oftentimes pays like times three, times four of what foreigners are paying. Of what the citizens or residents are paying. So that's
Right, right.
definitely a good incentive. Yeah.
Yeah, see, in Canada, my son was studying at the astrophysics in Waterloo. So when I went to drop him in 2019, he is a born citizen. So when I went to university, he
Mhm.
found his roommate because in the first year due to stay in a dorm. So he came from China. So his course, he paid the $5,500 for the tuition fees, and his friend pays the $35,000. Same program, same class,
Exactly.
same teacher. So that's
Paying the
another
premium
incentive.
tax.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So basically, these foreign students, they want that because you are paying a premium to study there. So based on your fees, the local students are subsidized.
Yeah.
Subsidized up to an extent that, Paul, in that country, means you are there and you know that, in that country, still the education is heavily funded by the government. So like in Montreal, in the University of McGill, when they raised the fees by $100 for the local students, there was a strike. $100. He says the education should be at the dirt cheap level that any poorest person of the society can go and take an education if he is capable of it and if he is willing. So you cannot increase the fees. Whereas in our private universities in our countries, whether it's any of the continent, you take it, the private universities tuition fees are going to the roof. And in some cases, it's become more expensive to study here than going and studying in America or in Canada. Some of the top universities in India, their tuition fees are in par with the Canadian university fees. So this is the reason that they take the residency and citizenship by investment for the parents. It could be also again for the expansion of a business. It should be tax residency, quality of life, visa free. And there are three group of countries I do it, those 6 English-speaking countries. Then the European countries like Portugal, Spain, Greece, Latvia, Cyprus, Malta, they have come up with their own residency and citizenship program by investment. And that is the effect of the Libman brothers of 2008. Because at that time, if you remember, these 3 countries, Portugal, Spain, and Greece, were declared almost bankrupt. And at that time, the Portuguese government came up with the idea in 2010 that if you come and buy our dirt cheap real estate, we will give you a residency. So in 2012 to 16, it was kind of a slow, and then it has picked up the speed that in 2024, they had to stop that program because it's a small country, it's a small economy. And it says that the way in which the number of immigrants are coming and buying the properties in our country, it has gone off the roof. So we would like to welcome the immigrants, but not buying the real estates, make an investment into a funds, you can do a fixed deposit, you can give a donations. So these are the golden visa has come up for the European countries. And then the third part is the Caribbean islands, which is Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominicas, where they issue a passport. Generally, this one is for the people who wants to do a business, tax planning, have a retirement life. Generally, it is meant for them, but those visas are there as well. And with this residency and citizenship, it gives a lot of movement to the parents that many parents, what they've done it is, well, like many of my clients, they've gone, taken this residency. They have stayed there for 3 years, 4 years in Canada or in Australia. They obtained their citizenship. They have come back and they basically gifted the citizenship to their children. Now they are a citizen of that country, so they can take an advantage of everything. Again, being planning. But it is possible, residency and citizenship by investment is possible to do it. And it has become a way. And one additional thing, what I advise to people is to the wealthy parents, those who are doing very well in their home country, but still the children are young, and still that burning desire is there in their heart that I want, if I could not study, but I want my son to study in America or in Canada. And you cannot immigrate because your business is now expanded so much, or you have a so good job, and so on and so forth. At least start doing the saving in a foreign currency, financial planning. And that's what I advise to people.
Yeah.
And that's your subjects, what your company is doing, helping the people that at least you obviously you are saving money in your home country. So can you put 20% of the money out of the countries or in a foreign currency like in a US dollar or pound sterlings or a euro? So you can use that money later on for your children's education, for their expenses. And that could be a huge saving because the cost of education is increasing, cost of living is increasing in that. The currency obviously is changing. You already know about that very well, that this is what is happening. So this is the residency and citizenship part that they have to look into it.
Thank Prashant. I appreciate that. And I like that you mentioned in terms of like saving, at the very least, right? What parents should add to their strategy, they should they should
Financial
add to their
planning.
strategy, yeah, for financial planning. I think I'll get into strategies here in a minute because I think it's very important that people have a strategy, right? At the end of the day, when we look at this, is that people have it in their mind that I want to move to Canada and that's it, right? And they just start spending a lot of money, start putting a lot of resources in place without a proper strategy. And when you don't have a strategy, then you're not going to be successful. So we're going to touch on strategies here in a minute. But I like how you mentioned the idea of, this open immigration countries, right? You Canada, Australia, New Zealand, right?
Mhm.
And you had mentioned earlier that if we are able to, with a little bit of planning, if somebody wanted to go study, if they wanted to relocate to one of these open countries, they could literally get an undergrad from their home country or a master's, get some work experience, and then from that they can, and they can plan their way out. I want you to expand a little bit on that is, let's say Paul, today is coming from India or he's coming from Ghana in Africa, and he wants to essentially put together a strategy that within the next 3 to 5 years, right? I want to put together a strategy that can help me find myself in Canada or Australia in the next 5 years. How would I go about it on a high level, right? Of course, if
Right.
somebody needs a customized strategy, after this call, we would provide you with Prashant's information so that you can reach out to him and his team after this call to set up like a personalized consultation so they can work with you. But from a high level, right,
High
is
level.
if I
So,
wanted
okay,
to do
I'll
that,
I'll tell
yeah,
you. I got your question, Paul.
yeah.
See, these three countries are British colony. They are English speaking. They, I would say, they share their each other's knowledge, the notes, and their immigration is based on the open immigration policy. Means you do not need a company to sponsor you, but if you meet our point system requirement, you can get an immigrations and then you can come to our country and look for a job. So for example, let's take a computer engineer. You have a master's degree in engineering. You are, so that's the points you are getting for your education. Then you have a 2 to 3 years of an experience as a computer engineer, which could be a software engineer or a hardware engineer. So you have got that one. And relevant experience, not experience you are doing something else, cooking pizzas or doing the marketing jobs. No, it has
Mm-hmm.
to be related to your education. That's number two. If your English is in Nigeria, I know it should not be a problem, but still try to take the IELTS exams and prepare for that one and crack that one. Try to get a better score. So if your score is a 7 or 8 in that one, so you got your master's degree, you got your 3 years of education experience, your English level is good, and if you have done this one before you hit 30 years of an age, I can guarantee you, you will end up in one of these country in the easiest way and in a most economical way.
Sweet. I love that, right? So from a strategy point of view, make sure you're doing a course that is solid. Let's say a STEM course, right? Science, technology, engineering, math, right? From a high point of view. Of course, other courses, you can look at it on a case by case basis, right?
Right,
But make sure
absolutely.
you're going for the STEM route. Make sure you go to a good school, right? Make sure your degree is from a school that,
Okay,
is
hold,
solid.
hold,
Go ahead.
hold on that. So now I'll tell you now, as you said, the good school means what it is happening is that now there are private colleges and universities are there in all these countries. Most
Hmm.
of the agents who are wondering in Nigeria or in Africa or in India are from these colleges because these colleges do not get a grants from the government. So they are given more incentives and these colleges are promoting their admissions. They give you an admission letter right there or in 24 hours. Whereas if you
Hmm.
go to a proper university, irrespective of which university you go to, ranking doesn't matter. Whether you got a degree, bachelor's degree from Harvard or from Indian universities or an African university, it doesn't make difference. For all these three countries, when you have a bachelor's degree, it's a bachelor's degree, 16 year of education, it gives you a same point. because it
Sweet.
works
I
on a
like
point
that.
system.
So yeah, ensure that I guess maybe I should use the word ensure you go to an accredited university, an accredited school.
Exactly. Exactly. Accredited university, 4 years. 4 years
Yeah. Okay.
of
So make
education.
sure you
Because
graduate from an accredited school that, that would meet, the requirements, the minimum educational requirements for these countries, right?
yeah, so I mean, I looked at it that in African countries, you have a after graduate school graduation, 4 years of bachelor's degree, 2 years of master's degree. Same
Masters.
degree, you can take it anywhere in Africa. And those universities, and I've checked the ranking, are not on the top of the 100, 200 list, but between 200 and 500, those African universities are listed. So it's not that they are not there, they are there. But what
Yeah.
people do is try to do the small courses, part-time courses, 1 year programs, and they think that, okay, now I want to go to Canada. It's not going to work.
It's not gonna work. Yeah. I like that. So make sure so talking about strategy, right? So this is the part where you understand that what you're doing, you need to have a strategy around it, right? So
Right.
if I were using my sister as an example, right? Let's say now she's gotten her undergrad, she's going to be done next year, and say she wants to do another master's. She wants to do a master's in Nigeria or anywhere else she wants to do her master's, right? And then she has 2 3 years work experience. She's still young, she's like 22 now or so,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And by the time she's done, then she can sit back and say, hey, you know what, I want to I still want to go somewhere else, right? And then she can look at some of these options, and then she can go. So make sure you have a strategy that involves a course or a program that is in STEM, or at the very least, you go to a school that is accredited. And then, of course, make sure you have a good English, command of English, and in extension, you can take the IELTS, right?
Right. But again, one point I want to make that if your education requires a license, say for example, you want to become a doctor, you want to become a civil engineer, if you want to become a pharmacist, physiotherapist, if you want to become an architect, this requires a license in a particular country.
Mhm.
So if you are studying or a law, even a law graduate, you need a bar council's license. So if you are studying this program, you want to this
The
study
license is the
program.
license from your home country or from the country of destination.
Yeah, but so I'm explaining it both ways. So say for
Okay.
example, you become a civil engineer in Nigeria. You got your 4 years of degree, right? And probably you are a licensed engineers in Nigeria. Now you want to go to Canada, and you think that I'll go and do a master's and I'll start working as a civil engineer. You need to pass the Canadian licensing exam.
Okay.
If
Okay.
you do not get that one, you are nowhere near going to be the construction sites or construction drawing boards.
Hmm.
So you need a
So
Canadian license.
strategy.
So again, a strategy is that if your occupation requires a license in other country, you got it from your home country, it requires in other country, find out that how you going to get that license. Because I got tons of cases where the lawyers, doctors, civil engineers, architects, dentists, physiotherapists, pharmacists are going to study abroad. Once they realize it, when they reach there, that, oh, I do not have a license, I don't have an immigration, I cannot do it, I just wasted my 2 years of time. Or they will say,
That's sad.
I got my immigration to Canada as a dentist, as a dental hygienist or dental technician, but I cannot become a dentist because I didn't pass the dental licensing exam. That means personally, I cannot do anybody's root canal.
Mm.
I have to be an assistant to a doctor who is licensed. And that's big mistakes the students are making.
Exciting. Thank you very much, Prashant, for all of this nuggets that you've really shared with us. I'll take my last question here with you, and then we can open it up for questions, right?
Sure.
I guess we know you have a lot of questions that you'd like to chat to, Prashant about. At the end of the webinar, we would drop, his email, his contact information. However, you're able to reach his team so that they can You can book one-on-one consultations with him and his team, and they can sit you down and listen to your questions about your specific situation, and then they can guide you and help put together a strategy, that can help you become successful. Either you're looking to to relocate abroad for study, either you're looking to relocate abroad, through the citizenship route, or you already have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, and you're looking for the best way to go to one of these open countries, open immigration countries. They would be more than happy to help you. My question here is, what are some of the mistakes that students and parents make when they're planning, for their children's education abroad? I know we've mentioned some of those, right?
I
But
already mentioned it, but I
wanted to
made my list.
elaborate.
I know
Yeah.
that the questions I thought that it will come up. One is that the study for the parents, generally the parents, they say the study abroad is ensures my child's success. Job, second one is the job and immigration is automatic, which is not. Third, they always say this is the study abroad is the only way to settle abroad, which I just explained that there's so many routes out there. You have to find out the right people and the right times. Generally, the parents are coming to us very late. When the child has finished the 12, then they come. So child is not good in English. Probably sometimes they've not taken any work experience. Also, what is the general mentality here is that they want to finish the education first and then they get on their career. Sometimes you have to break. Parents are also too busy. Oh, well, it's my baby. It's just it's going to take a while for him to get. But you never know that when this baby is going to be a man and a woman, and
Mhm.
we need the help, and that planning is not done. And when the child is in the grade 8 to 12, they do not have that kind of things. And that's where the parent has to start thinking about it, that what are we going to do? Earlier you start, it would be better. Particularly, I have seen it that with the parents, this is a psychology that when they get married, when their first child, they are very excited. They talk about the best schools, they talk about the best nurseries and blah, blah, blah. When they get the second child, oh, it's a routine, forget about it. And then the particularly, if the wife is not working, busy raising the children, husband is working or husband and wife both are working, and they do not look into all this. And unfortunately, when the SOS happens, when the child has finished the grade 12 and they want their child to go abroad, dime a dozen agents and consultants are available in every country around the world. And these agents are most of the times not regulated. They are not there to give career counseling advice because they don't charge you anything. So they have to make money somewhere and they have to convince you to take up this course. And that is the hard truth. So these are the mistakes made by the parents. When it comes to the child, some of the mistakes are the same, but one is a hurry and a peer pressure. My friend has gone after 12 to America, I got to go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the suicide. That's a suicide.
Yeah. It's a
So it
suicide.
should not
I like
happen.
that.
The
Hmm.
second one is with respect to English. We all speak good English, but always try to improve your English.
Mm.
And that English will take you a long way, particularly in this English-speaking countries like Australia, Canada, and USA, because this IELTS exams has become necessary. Like we all have our own accents from our ethnic background,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
needs to
Yeah.
be broken up and then take the exam. So concentrate on your English earlier in your career as much as you possible. Also, every student, and I see a lot of questions here as well, the way in which they think in their home country that I finished my bachelor's degree and job is available. Similarly, they think that if I be in America or in Australia or Canada, job is going to be available. Look, nobody wants a fresh graduate. And then you are going to America or Canada or Australia or New Zealand. I graduated from the top schools and I'm not getting a job. Well, surprise, surprise, that employer can get 50 Americans or Canadians to hire you. Why they would look at your resume?
Yeah. You need
unless
to
they are
have a
desperate.
strategy. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Like recently, I read an article about one lady that she was a gold medal here in India from the architect. She got the admissions into UK in the top architect school, I think Royal School of Architect, and then she wrote a long list. Means the article on the LinkedIn that I send
Mm.
my resume to 200 or 50 companies, and I didn't get even a
Companies and
reply.
did not hear back.
Yeah, I heard from them. So he said, "What's the point?" I said, "Look," and I wrote back to her in that reply, "You don't have a license.
Mm,
You don't have an experience of working in architect in England. You cannot
yeah.
make a plan for the British House. You are no good.
Hmm.
Nobody is going to hire you." So then she
Yep.
wrote back to me that nobody told me that. I said, "Well, everything is not to be told. It has to be discovered by strategy.
Yeah.
You have to find out." Uh, No, and again, they go to the agents and consultants. They are ready to go, so they go to any institutes. And one of the worst things they do is they getting an experience not related to your education. And when you go to these countries for study, if your education is not related to your education, your STEM studies, and you are doing working in a Pizza Hut or something, which is good when you are a local student or
Hmm.
when you are studying. But when you finish your degree, you need to have that work experience. So many times, Paul, I advise to my clients when they are in Canada or in the UK that, oh, I'm not getting a job in my field. What do I do? I say, your degree is good. If you're not getting a job, come back to your home country, gain an experience, and then apply for an immigration. That door is open for you. You do not have to be in that country and work for a top company there, and then only your immigration is going to work if you are deciding to take a degree from there. But these students are without an experience, they are expecting the foreign country to hire them. It will not work in a Western world. It will work only in the Middle Eastern countries like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and
Mm.
those ones. It will
Yeah.
work in Hong Kong, Singapore, and those countries. But in the Western world, the cost of hiring people is very high. So they do not want to hire a rookies who has no experience, to whom they have to train.
Yep. Training, I can tell you, I'm an employer, and training people is one of the hardest thing I have ever had to do.
Yeah. And the worst mistake they made is they are pursued by an agent that you will get a job, take a bank loan, and
Oh yeah.
pay for your tuition fees. You will working, I mean, studying in the morning, in the afternoon you will work and you pay for your loan. That's the worst decision you can take about study abroad.
I always talk about student loans as it's a dicey move. Yeah, even though the money is there, the agents want to encourage you to take it, but again, people need to. It's not a decision to be taken very lightly. So I do,
No,
I do agree with you. Yeah. Thank you very much, Prashant. Really appreciate your time here. It's been really, if you can see, I've been taking notes. Even me, like I've learned like so many new things today, just, having these conversations with you now. I can literally go back to my sister and say, hey, you see, I told you, you
something will
can
work
you
out.
can you can you can have a strategy around your education abroad or whatever you want to do with your future and the rest of your life. So that's really exciting. I'm sure a lot of people have found value in these conversations that we've had. So we'll now open it up for questions. Please, you have a question, please use the raise hand button to raise your hand, and then we can unmute you so you can ask your questions to our guest. And while he does that, we'll also take some of the questions in the chat. So if you have any questions, please feel free to, use the raise hand button and then raise your hand, and then we'll take it from there.
So the first question is, what is the website where we can find the job listings in reference to the course of study?
Hmm.
There is no website where it says that this is the studies and this is the job available. But generally, if you go to your country's embassy website, generally they have a section called the student visa. And under the student visa, they have an additional information is given with respect to the studying in USA or studying in Canada. And if you go through this one, then it will give you the various links are there from that particular country. A number of links are given, and that links will lead you to that which jobs are there. Like say, for example, I'll tell you about Canada. If you want to look at the job prospects of a particular occupations, you look at the NOC, National Occupation Classification. If you look at that one, it's a whole list of 25,000 occupations are there. It includes every occupation in the world you can think about it, which has been defined, that what job duties that you should be doing. And then if you go at the bottom of that one, it will give you the job prospects and so on and so forth. So generally the labor department of that country and statistics department, the stats can we call it, are the one which keeps this data. So if you do the Google search, generally the US embassy websites and Canadian embassy websites and these websites are pretty good in doing that one. Also, if you are talking about the study in USA, they have their sections in the consulate. They call it a study in USA. And there are tons of volumes are available, PDF files, which can give you a complete details about the study in USA, step by step of everything. So these are the
Yeah.
places you can go and look at.
Sweet, thank you. And for the US, they also have a website called the Job Outlook. You can always, Google if you just put in Google, US, I think it's the Department of Labor Job Outlook. It will show you
It's
kind of
called
like what
job.
they,
It's a jobs.gov.us. So it's
yeah,
job.gov. And for Canada is jobbanks.gc.ca.
yeah.
Jobbanks.gc.ca. So these jobs are there, which is there are two types of websites are there. Some of them are private, but government has their own websites, which is run by the Ministry of Labor for the local people as well, that if they want to find a job within the Canada, they can do it. So that can give you an idea as well that what are the job prospects and so on and so forth. Another question.
Sweet.
Yeah, next question. So I think somebody
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. So let's take the next one is why is undergraduate application not granted loan plan? I guess what they're saying is that maybe sometimes people don't get loans for undergraduate studies because
Right.
the loan companies
I'll give you the. I
they
got
don't
the
want to.
questions. Let me explain it.
Yeah.
See, what happens
Okay.
is that when the bank is giving you a loan in your home country, say for example in Nigeria or in India, they want to see that how you're going to pay back. And their experience is that when you go for an undergraduate degree, you do not probably end up with the proper jobs. And if you do not get a proper jobs, you cannot pay it back. And if you don't pay it back, and if that's what the experience they have it, they're going to refuse your loan.
Mm-hmm. It's very straightforward, right? Undergrad, you don't have any experience, you don't have a lot of collateral, and your future prospect is not very straightforward, right? So, they don't want to take that chance. Um, so yeah. So we have one hand raised. Let me look for iPhone 13. I'm gonna ask
So,
you to unmute and then you can ask your question. So I'm yeah, so you can go ahead and ask your question, please.
Okay, good evening. Can you hear me?
yes, we can
Yeah,
hear
we
you.
can hear you.
Okay. I have some in most cases, especially United States, if you are trying to get a student visa from US Embassy, of course, most times after meeting the requirement, after going for interview, they start to think maybe you're just trying to escape or trying blah 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 like that, and many people get refused because of that. So I want to know that even after meeting all these strategical requirements, sometimes, not even sometimes, most times, you get visa denied from US Embassy if you are applying most from Africa. I don't know about other countries, so I want to know the reason.
Yes, as I explained earlier, that the student visas, visitor visa, and the uh, work permit visas or an H1 visa, it's a non-immigrant visa. And under this non-immigrant visa, it's up to you to prove that you once you finish your study, you're going to come back to your home country. That's number one. Number two, that what is your plan that after you finish your study, what are you going to do in your home country? That's number two. Number three, they look at it. What is your background or financial background to complete your study? That means, do you have enough money? We cannot put an argument that I have a money for 1 year, then I'm going to go there and work and finish my undergrad or finish my master's. So these are the three fundamental parameters they look at it. Plus the fourth one is that they see the ratios of country like in India or an African continent that major of the students they go, they do not finish the studies or they finish the studies, they don't come back. And that's why the rejection rate for student visas in all these countries is very high. And the only way to do is to try to make an application as much as possible with the proper plan, studies, and everything to show your finances and even your plan or SOP, we call it a statement of purpose, that how you're going to study, what are you going to study, what kind of job you're going to find out when you come back to your home country, why you will come back, and what are you going to do this one. So all those answers needs to be prepared and given, then there are better chances. But if you just put up the application with the bare minimum information and documents, chances are that your file is going to be rejected. And nobody can guarantee that if this is how you put up your file, it's going to be approved.
Sweet, thank you. I think that's a a solid one. So we'll move on to the next. So Victor would ask you to unmute and you can ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good day. So, first of all, I want to appreciate the session. It has been very enlightening. So, based on what has been mentioned so far, I just have a question pertaining to career paths. So, I did my bachelor's in Nigeria, in a Nigerian university in petroleum engineering, and ultimately, I want to eventually further my education abroad, particularly in data science. But I've worked for like 2 years and I have enough competency to practice. So I heard he mentioned that it's kind of a hindrance if your path, your career path, your maybe your bachelor is not directly aligning with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So is there going to be an issue there? Because
Absolutely. It is going to be an issue, Victor, because for the immigrations, for any country, you take it, the officers are very narrow in their looking at it because they are guided by their rules, regulations, and procedure guidelines. And they will say that you are not studying as what you study, but you are doing something else, like you said, data science. Probably you are very good at data science, you love it, and you self-taught it. But that would be very hard for an officer to digest or put it to it that, okay, this guy got a petroleum degree, engineering degree in petroleum, but he is so brilliant that he got his data science by self-taught, I should give him a visa. He doesn't have that power to give that visa to you because the law says very clearly that you need to have an experience related to your education. What I can do or suggest to you is that try to get a more experience in this one. And when you finish your bachelor's and when you want to do a master's, you have a two choice. One is going towards the technical side. That means you do the master's or an MS, or you go on management side where you want to do an MBA. What is your age, Victor, if I may ask you?
28.
28. So you are young. So in that respect, you have to see that with my data science degree, can I take not a course, a master's degree within Africa, and then build on that one and apply for an immigration of these three open countries, which is Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. If you have a master's degree from Africa and this experience, you should not have a difficulties getting an immigration. But based on this one now, if you find a company, first of all, you will find the difficulties of finding a company who will ready to hire you because it's not matching with each other. You already entered it. Same thing will happen with the visa officer. So my suggestion to you would be that you study and finish your master's or university degree will have a better chance of settling abroad subsequently rather than running now.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So we'll take one question in the chat. The question is, for me, I want to know what my options are either in USA or Canada. I relocated to the UK in 2022 and just finished a 2 year course in education with a master's degree. What are my chances in Canada?
So do you have an experience, particularly that person? So yes, if you have a master's degree, I already mentioned, you need to have a minimum 1 year of experience related to your education. Preferably, I would say 3 years. If you are not getting a job in UK related to your education, come back to your home country. With your degree in England, I'm sure that you will be end up getting a job related to your education. You may not be paid what you would like to be paid, I know, but that relevant experience from a mid-levels or the good company with the 2 to 3 years of an experience, it can give you a direct immigration to Canada, provided that occupation is demand. You didn't mention that what you finish your degree, and I presume that probably it was in the STEM or something like that. In USA, you will have a hard time to find a company to do your H1. Paul will be in a better position to advise you what can happen. But it will be a difficult.
Yeah, I agree.
But yes, Canada can open.
Go ahead, Prashant.
Canada can open a door for you, provided you have a relevant experience. Because without experience, if you keep trying, it will not happen. Because I'm sure that you tried in England and it didn't work out. Because they have closed the door recently because they want to come up with the new regulations. So there is no companies hiring it unless you are at the mid-level or senior level managers. That's the only occupations that are open when you are making a salary of 35,000 pounds or 45,000 pounds and above.
Yeah.
So for the fresh graduates, it's nothing open right now in England or in UK. Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll take a couple. Yeah, we'll take a couple more questions. We have a few hands raised, so we'll just jump through those real quick. I know we are at time, Prashant. We want to be mindful and respectful of your time. So we'll take one more question here. And then if you have questions for Prashant, his email is his contact information has been dropped in the chat. There is Prashant, PRASHANT at AJMERALAW.com. So the information is there. We'll drop it again now. Yeah, so the information has been dropped there. So if you want to reach out to him, set up a time for consultation with him and his team, they will send you, you can send them an email, they will send you, information on how to book your consultation, how to go through a lot of the questions, and then they can help guide you, in your immigration journey. But our last question today would come from Tolulokpe Makinde. And then after Tolulokpe Makinde, later today, this recording will be available on YouTube. So you can go on Pay for Me's YouTube or go on all of our various socials. And the recording will be there for you to listen to it, just in case if you arrive late or you want to go back to listen to something that we've said. So Tolulokpe, please go ahead. Okay.
Samuel,
All right.
Okay,
Samuel.
there it is.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
All right, good. Thank you very much, Prashant, for that wonderful section. It was very
educative. So I wanted to share more light about tuition loan, student loan, how it impacts the visa approval. Will you recommend student loan? When you were speaking, you talk about during the visa application processing that you need to prove that you have the financial capacity for your study. For instance, if to study 2 years in master, we have to prove I can, cater for the entire 2 years program or with a 1 year and maybe take a tuition loan for the rest. So what will you recommend that will improve the visa approval?
So first of all, are you going for undergrad programs or masters?
No, master's program in
Okay,
US.
and a master's program in USA. And
Okay, I
for the
think we're
master,
having a connection issue at the end. Okay, yeah, we have you now. Yeah, you're back now.
yeah. So with the master's program, who is applying for the loan? You or your parents?
Me.
Okay. So if you take these loans, then who is going to pay the loans in your home country?
Me, while
And
working.
how are you going to do that? Are your bank is going to give you the money?
No, through work.
No, they will not. I don't think that any bank will give you a money if you are going to be the only applicant. You need to have your parents or your guardians or your relatives as a guarantor because you have gone to USA. How the bank is going to receive your money, their money? Your loan application will not be accepted. I don't think that it will be accepted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Go
ahead.
We have the tuition loan like Empower, like Prodigy, that will give you a tuition loan that after graduation you can work and repay the tuition loan. That's what I saw. Is it advisable?
No, if it is not coming from the proper banking channel, it will not work because you're talking about the private companies who are giving you a loan, right?
Yes, a private company. Yes.
This is not accepted by any country. Do not take that loan. It will not work. Number one. And number two, I don't know about this company, but I can caution you that there would be a heavy interest they would be charging for your loans. And it is possible, it is also possible that they have their people on grounds in America that if you do not make your installment, they will come and harass you in your dorm when you are in America.
Yeah, loans are they're an interesting one, right? So I think if you want to learn more about advice in terms of loans, if you go to the Pay for Me YouTube, last month we held held a session with a former US visa officer, and she extensively talked about how she views loans, right? Essentially, loans should be, so if you have like a three-stage financial approach, right? Personal funds should be number one. Then grants and scholarships, and other grants, scholarships, teaching assistants, whatnot should be number two. And then maybe, you can now look at taking some loans. That is if you, just like Prashant said, you get your family members to co-sign for you, or depending on however you get the loan, right? But at the end of the day, it should be, the least option,
Minimum.
right? Your family savings, scholarships, grants, etc., and then, everything else. But you can go watch that YouTube recording as well if you want to learn more. Go ahead, Prashant.
Yeah. Thank you.
And if your parents or family members are wealthy, like your parents or your uncle or your aunt, if they are going to be your guarantor, that you're going to be financing your education, that would be more logical and possible. But these private ones, definitely no, not for America, for any country. I don't think that it will work.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Prashant.
Thank you.
I would like for you to give a closing remarks. Personally, I really appreciate your time for coming here, and thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you.
For those of you that are not aware, Prashant is joining us from India, and it is really late out there. It's like almost midnight, and he's staying up to share his wealth of knowledge with us. We want to say big thank you, and if you can leave us with a closing word, closing remarks, and then we can end it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for inviting me to this one. I always enjoy this kind of sessions. Over the 32 years of the time, it has become my passion. If the time allows, I can go on for another 2 hours because it has become my passion rather than my business. And to be honest with you, the giving a truthful advice, I don't make the money, but I make a lot of reputation. That if you go to the Prashant Ajmera, you will get an honest opinion. It would be bitter, you may not like it, but it would be a truth. So, and coming to such a big and a large audience of the Africa, particularly Nigeria, I think most of them are, it has been privilege and honor for me. Thank you again for inviting me, and I wish you guys all best of luck. And I'll be more than happy to take the another sessions or do the Zoom call. This is the one blessing of our COVID that we have all adopted the video conferencing very well. Something good come out of the COVID is this video. And and wish you all a great success and great journey. And I'm sure that if you do a proper planning, your dream will settle abroad will come true. I am 62 years old, and I have done the same exercise 40 years back. At that time, it was not a time of the digital era, but I pursued it and it worked. So I'm sure that it will work for you. If one rejection here or there doesn't bother you, the ways are always there. They want an immigrant, provided you have a right education, right English level, right work experience, what they need, the doors are open for you. Thank you very much, guys. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant. Have a good evening. And thank you, everybody. See you on the next one. Bye for now.
Bye.